Hi, I'm Gary Striegler, and today I'm working on a project to create an outdoor version of this stair up easing. Now, I'm going to be doing that using some pieces of finger joint cedar that I'm going to glue together. I will actually put the profile on that handrail by running it through my Woodmaster using this knife. But part of that is something that I want to share as a trick that I use all the time, and that is how to create multiple pieces that match by using a pattern with a flush trim router bit like this. So the first thing that I did was I traced this radius onto a fairly large piece of the finger joint cedar material that I'm going to use. Now, I need to put 3 layers together: an outside layer that has the profile for one side, another layer that has a profile for the other side, and then basically a filler piece in the middle, but they all need to match exactly. So I started by making a Mdf pattern by tracing this, then I moved it and traced it again to add a much bigger piece I'm actually going to need. That's because when I run something through the Woodmaster, I always want to have a little bit extra to make sure I don't have any problem with these snipe or anything. So here is my pattern piece. It's got a piece of finger joint cedar that's attached, and I've already used my flush trim router bit, and the bit is going to run right on that pattern, or did run right on that pattern to create this piece. Now, how did I hold that on there? I used some headless pins, and again, this is a trick. I can't even tell you how many times I use this trick for different things, during my woodworking jobs. There's one thing that's kind of important that you want to think about on this. I shot the headless pins through the Mdf pattern into the piece of finger joint cedar. The reason that's really important is because if I'd shot them through the piece of cedar into this pattern, then I'd have some of the headless pin left in the cedar, and so I'd get nicks in my knife when I ran it through to put the profile on it. Now, all I'm going to do the next piece is wiggle these headless pins back and forth, and I did 3 headless pins, and they'll break off right below the surface, so I can run my hand right over it. So here's the next piece, and what I did when I attached is I traced the line on the outside edge of this pattern, but then I cut with a jigsaw about 1/8 to 1/16 proud of that line. That's because I'm just not good enough to cut right on the line. But by using this pattern and attaching it like so, I'm going to be able to create 3 pieces that are about as close to exact as you can get. And once I get all that done, I'll glue them together using some Tight Bond 3. So I'm just going to take 3 headless pins. Again, I'm shooting through the Mdf pattern into the piece of cedar. As you can see, the cedar's kind of hanging over a little bit there. Now, I'm going to clamp this down and just start to show you how this works. Okay, so the bearing on the flush trim bit is going to ride on the pattern. So I've got an exact, or as close to exact as possible, duplicate of the pattern on the inside. I'm going to flush trim the outside. I'll do that to the other piece. Then I'm going to profile the 2 outside pieces through the Woodmaster, and I'm going to go ahead and do a video on that too, just so you can see that process. But This is a trick that I use all the time, creating multiple pieces by first make a pattern and then just nail a piece to that pattern and flush trim it. And by the way, I did, and on the pattern, I did some sanding around the inside radius using the random orbit sander. The great thing about these sanders, there's just enough give in the pad so that if you keep the sander moving, you can sand around inside radius and smooth it out, because it is important to have a good pattern, because the router bit's just going to reproduce whatever shape you got on the pattern.